Don't you dare look at him.
The words echoed in Juliet's mind even before Min-ho said them, a premonition of the storm about to break. She felt his eyes on her all evening, burning across the crowded ballroom like a brand, but she'd chosen to ignore the warning signs, the way his jaw tightened when she laughed, the way his fingers curled into fists when another man leaned too close. The charity gala was in full swing, Seoul's elite gathered in a glittering display of wealth and power. Crystal chandeliers cast prismatic light across designer gowns and tailored suits. Champagne flowed like water, and the string quartet in the corner played something classical and forgettable. Juliet had been in Korea for 8 months now, long enough to navigate these events with practiced grace, her dark skin drawing admiring glances that she'd learned to accept with quiet confidence. Her dress tonight was midnight blue silk that hugged every curve before flowing to the floor. Her natural hair styled in elegant twists that framed her face, gold jewelry catching the light with every movement. She was beautiful, and she knew it. More importantly, Min-ho knew it, and he was absolutely furious about everyone else knowing it too. She'd been talking with Park Yi-sung for maybe 10 minutes, innocent conversation about the foundation they were both supporting tonight, his recent trip to New York, her adjustment to life in Seoul. Yi-sung was handsome in that polished, safe way that wealthy heirs often were, his smile practiced and his compliments rehearsed. Harmless. Forgettable. Except Min-ho didn't see harmless. He saw a threat. Juliet felt him before she saw him, the air shifting as he cut through the crowd with predatory purpose. Conversation seemed to die in his wake, people instinctively moving aside as Min-ho approached. At 34, he commanded attention without effort, 6 feet of lean muscle wrapped in a custom black suit that probably cost more than most people's cars, his presence so magnetic it bordered on overwhelming. But it was his face that truly arrested attention, devastatingly handsome in a way that seemed almost unfair, all sharp cheekbones and intense dark eyes framed by black hair styled with careless perfection. Full lips that could smile with devastating charm or curl with dangerous intent. And the tattoos. God, the tattoos. Intricate Korean traditional designs flowed from his hands up both arms, disappearing beneath his crisp white shirt only to emerge again at his collar, dark ink climbing the sides of his neck in patterns that spoke of dragons and phoenixes, protection and power. In the conservative world of Korean business, they should have been scandalous. Instead, they were hypnotic, a visual declaration that Min-ho played by his own rules and dared anyone to challenge him. He was the CEO of Yongsan Holdings, one of Seoul's most powerful conglomerates with interests spanning real estate, entertainment, and technology. Juliet knew him because he was her client, her most important client, the one who'd hired her consulting firm to oversee the international expansion of his entertainment division. She'd been working with his company for 6 months, flying between Seoul and her home base, spending long hours in strategy meetings and presentations, building something that was supposed to be purely professional. Except there was nothing professional about the way he was looking at her right now. And right now, that dangerous, beautiful man was looking at Juliet like she was his and his alone, and Yi-sung had just committed an unforgivable sin by making her laugh. Juliet, Min-ho's voice was silk over steel, his English perfect, but accented in a way that made her name sound like something illicit. We need to talk. It wasn't a request. Yi-sung, to his credit, recognized the danger immediately. His smile faltered as he took in Min-ho's expression, the barely leashed violence in the set of his shoulders. Min-ho SSI, I was just. Leaving. Min-ho didn't even look at him, his gaze locked on Juliet with an intensity that made her breath catch. Weren't you? There was a moment of tense silence. Then Yi-sung bowed slightly, mumbled something about finding his wife, and disappeared into the crowd with embarrassing speed. Juliet should have been angry, should have called Min-ho out for his rudeness, his possessiveness, his complete lack of boundaries. Instead, she felt heat curl low in her belly, her pulse quickening as he stepped closer, close enough that she could smell his cologne, something expensive and masculine that made her want to lean in despite her better judgment. That was incredibly rude, she said, keeping her voice level even as her heart raced. He's a potential partner for the Tokyo expansion. You just scared off someone we might need. We don't need him. Minho's hand found the small of her back, fingers splaying possessively against the silk of her dress. The touch burned through the thin fabric. And you don't need to smile at him like that. Like what? I was being professional, networking. You know, the thing you're paying me to do. I'm paying you to expand my business, not to flirt with every man who pays you a compliment. His voice dropped lower, meant only for her ears. And you were enjoying it. I was being polite. There's a difference. Is there? Because from where I was standing, watching you laugh at his jokes, watching you touch his arm, that looked like more than politeness. Juliet's temper flared, finally breaking through the physical response his proximity was causing. You don't get to police who I talk to or how I behave at professional events. You're my client, Minho, not my keeper. Client, he said the word like it tasted bitter. Is that really all I am to you? The question hung between them, heavy with everything they'd been dancing around for months. The late-night strategy sessions that went longer than necessary. The way his hand would linger on her lower back when guiding her through doorways. The looks that lasted too long, communicated too much. The tension that had been building like a pressure system waiting to explode. What else would you be? She asked, though her voice came out less certain than she'd intended. Don't play games with me, Juliet. Not tonight. His fingers tightened on her waist. You feel this. I know you do. Every time we're in the same room, every time I stand too close, every time you catch me looking at you like I want to devour you, you feel it. What I feel is irrelevant. We have a professional relationship. Boundaries. You signed a contract with my firm that explicitly prohibits. I don't care about contracts right now. He guided her through the crowd, his body angled protectively as they moved, his hand never leaving her waist. Let them stare. Let them whisper. I'm done pretending. They wove between clusters of Seoul's elite. Juliet catching fragments of conversation in Korean that she understood just enough to know they were about her, about them. Some faces showed curiosity, others disapproval, a few knowing smirks that suggested this had been expected. Minho ignored them all, his focus singular as he led her toward the terrace doors. Where are we going? Somewhere we can talk without an audience. The cool night air hit her like a shock after the warmth of the ballroom. The terrace was deserted, overlooking the glittering skyline of Seoul, the Han River a dark ribbon in the distance. Music and laughter filtered through the glass doors, muffled enough to create the illusion of privacy. Minho didn't stop until they reached the stone railing, the city spread out below them like scattered diamonds. Then he turned her to face him, backing her gently but inexorably against the balustrade, his hands on either side of her, caging her in without quite touching. Do you have any idea what you do to me? His voice was rough, strained, like he was holding himself back by sheer force of will. Watching you walk into that ballroom tonight, looking like every fantasy I've tried not to have. Watching every man in that room look at you the same way I do. Minho. I saw that smile, Juliet, the one you gave Yi-sung, the one that lights up your whole face, makes your eyes sparkle. He leaned closer, his face inches from hers. I want that smile. I want those laughs. I want to be the only man who gets to stand this close to you, who gets to make you blush, who gets to know what you look like when you're happy. We can't. She struggled to find words that made sense when her brain was short-circuiting from his proximity. There are rules, professional ethics. My firm has policies about getting involved with clients. If anyone found out. Then we'll be careful. Discreet. His hand came up, fingers tracing the line of her jaw with devastating gentleness. The tattoos on his hand were mesmerizing up close, intricate scales that seemed to shimmer in the ambient light. Or we won't be. I don't care anymore, Juliet. I'm tired of watching you from across conference rooms. I'm tired of keeping my hands to myself when all I want is to touch you. I'm tired of pretending this thing between us doesn't exist. What thing? But she knew. God, she knew exactly what he meant. This. He pressed closer, not quite touching, but close enough that she could feel the heat radiating from his body. This wanting that makes me crazy. This need that keeps me awake at night. This feeling that if I don't have you soon, I'm going to lose my mind. Juliet's hands came up automatically, landing on his chest to push him away, but instead her fingers curled into the fabric of his shirt, holding him there. This is insane. We barely know each other outside of work. I know you take your coffee black with 1 sugar. I know you bite your lip when you're thinking. I know you have a tell when you're nervous. You twist that ring on your right hand. His gaze dropped to her hands, currently twisted in his shirt. I know you've been in Seoul for 8 months, and you're lonely even though you won't admit it. I know you chose this city because you wanted adventure, wanted to prove you could build your business anywhere, but sometimes the isolation gets to you. How do you? Because I pay attention. Because every moment you're in my presence, I'm watching you, learning you, memorizing everything about you. His hand cupped her face. So don't tell me we barely know each other. I know you, Juliet. Maybe better than you know yourself. She took a shaky breath, that's not fair. The thing about this is fair. It's not fair that you walked into my conference room 6 months ago and turned my world upside down. It's not fair that I can't focus in meetings because I'm too busy watching you present. It's not fair that I've turned down every woman who's shown interest because they're not you. His thumb traced her lower lip. It's not fair that you're my consultant, that there are rules and policies and professional boundaries keeping me from having what I want. But I'm done caring about fair. Min-ho, I can't. If I get involved with a client, my reputation, my business. Then I'll terminate the contract. Tomorrow, I'll pay the full amount, write you a glowing recommendation, and hire someone else to handle the expansion. Problem solved. You'd really do that. Walk away from a project you've invested millions in just because. Because of you, yes. His forehead pressed against hers. I'd do that and more. I'd do anything to have you without complications, without barriers, without excuses. It should have been terrifying, the intensity of his focus, the single-minded determination in his voice. Instead, it was intoxicating, made her feel wanted in a way she'd never experienced. Men had desired her before, had pursued her, but never with this level of raw need. Never like she was essential to their existence rather than just an attractive option. What if it doesn't work? She whispered. What if we try this and it falls apart, and then I've thrown away my professional ethics for nothing? Then at least we tried. At least we were brave enough to reach for something real instead of hiding behind rules and propriety. He pulled back just enough to meet her eyes, and the vulnerability there took her breath away. I'm not good at this, Juliet. I'm demanding and possessive, and I have a temper. I've built my empire by being ruthless, by taking what I want and destroying anything that gets in my way. But with you, he paused, searching for words. With you, I want to be better. I want to be the man who deserves you, instead of just the man who wants you. I'm scared, she admitted. I've worked so hard to build my business, to be taken seriously in a field dominated by men who already doubt me because I'm a woman, because I'm black. If I cross this line with you, if people find out, then they'll see a successful woman making her own choices. They'll see someone brave enough to take a risk, and anyone who judges you for it will answer to me. His voice hardened. I protect what's mine, Juliet, and if you say yes to this, if you give us a chance, you'll be mine in every way that matters, which means anyone who tries to hurt you, professionally or personally, will regret it. So possessive, she said, but there was no heat in it. You have no idea. His lips curved into a dangerous smile. What you saw in there with Yi-sung, that was me being restrained. That was me remembering we were in public, that you value discretion, that I couldn't just throw you over my shoulder and carry you out like I wanted to. Despite everything, Juliet felt herself smile. You wanted to throw me over your shoulder. I wanted to do a lot of things. That was just the most socially acceptable option. His hands moved to her waist, settling there with confident possession. Say yes, Juliet. Stop thinking about all the reasons this is complicated and just feel. What does your gut tell you? What does your heart say when I'm this close, when I'm looking at you like you're everything I've ever wanted? Her gut said this was terrifying. Her heart said jump. If we do this, if I say yes, we do it my way, she said, proud of how steady her voice was. We tell your company officially that I'm recusing myself from your account, that there's a conflict of interest. I'll recommend someone else from my firm to take over the expansion project. Everything by the book, everything documented. Done. And we take it slow. No rushing into anything. We date like normal people, figure out if this attraction translates into actual compatibility. Define slow, he said, amusement coloring his tone. Slow as in we don't just jump into bed and call it a relationship. Slow as in we actually get to know each other outside of business contexts. Slow as in. He kissed her, cutting off her words. swallowing her conditions and her caution and her last shred of resistance. His mouth was hot and demanding against hers, his hands tightening on her waist as he pulled her flush against him, and Juliet felt every coherent thought scatter like leaves in a storm. This was nothing like the polite, tentative kisses of early relationships. This was claim and conquest, possession and promise, months of suppressed desire finally given permission to exist. Min-ho kissed her like a man starving, like he'd been holding back for so long that now that the dam had broken, he couldn't be gentle if he tried. And Juliet kissed him back with equal hunger, her fingers tangling in his hair, destroying its careful styling as she poured her own suppressed wanting into the contact. He tasted like whiskey and need, his body hard and solid against hers, the evidence of his desire pressed against her hip making her dizzy with want. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Min-ho rested his forehead against hers, his hands framing her face with surprising gentleness given the intensity of the kiss. "Still want to take it slow." His voice was rough, barely controlled. Juliet struggled to remember why that had seemed important. "Yes, maybe, I don't know anymore." He laughed, the sound rich and warm. "At least you're honest." His thumb traced her swollen lower lip. "We can take it as slow as you need, Juliet, but I need you to understand something. This isn't casual for me. This isn't just physical attraction or the thrill of something forbidden. This is intense," she finished. "Overwhelming, completely insane. All of that, but also real. Maybe the most real thing I've felt in years." He pressed a soft kiss to her forehead, so different from the devouring kiss of moments before. "So yes, we'll date. We'll have dinners and conversations and all the normal relationship things. But don't expect me to be patient about it. Don't expect me to watch you smile at other men without wanting to drag you away. Don't expect me to share you gracefully because that's not who I am." "I'm starting to understand that." She smoothed his shirt where she'd wrinkled it, her hands lingering on his chest, feeling his heart hammering beneath her palms. "But Min-ho, you need to understand something too. I'm not the kind of woman who needs a man to fight her battles or protect her from the world. I've built my business from nothing. I've survived in rooms where I was the only woman, the only person of color, the only one who didn't come from money or connections. I'm strong on my own." "I know you are. That's part of what draws me to you." His hands settled on her waist again, thumbs tracing idle circles through the silk of her dress. "I don't want to protect you because I think you're weak. I want to protect you because you're precious to me, because the thought of anyone hurting you, professionally, personally, any way at all, makes me want to destroy them. That's not about your capability. That's about my feelings. And the possessiveness, the jealousy. That's about fear," he admitted quietly. "Fear that you'll realize you can do better than a man with my reputation, my temper, my complications. Fear that someone else will catch your attention, will offer you something easier, simpler, less intense. Fear that I'll lose you before I've even really had you." The vulnerability in his voice undid something in her chest. This wasn't just the confident CEO, the powerful businessman who commanded respect and fear in equal measure. This was a man who wanted her enough to admit his weaknesses, to show her the softer parts beneath the dangerous exterior. "I'm not looking for easy," she said softly. "If I wanted easy, I would have stayed in New York, would have built my business in familiar territory with familiar clients. I came to Seoul because I wanted a challenge, because I wanted to prove I could succeed anywhere, because I wanted," she paused, realizing the truth even as she spoke it, "because I wanted to find something real, something that made me feel alive. And have you found that?" "I think I'm starting to." She reached up, tracing one of the tattooed dragons that climbed his neck, feeling him shiver under her touch. "These are beautiful. What do they mean?" "The dragons represent strength, power, good fortune in Korean tradition. The phoenixes," he guided her hand to where one spread its wings across his collarbone, barely visible above his shirt collar. "Those represent transformation, rising from ashes, becoming something better than what you were. And you needed that reminder." "I came from nothing, Juliet. Built everything I have from the ground up, made choices along the way that weren't always clean or noble. These," he gestured to the tattoos, "they remind me that power without honor is meaningless. That strength should be used to build, not just to destroy. That I can always choose to be better than I was yesterday." "You're not what I expected," she admitted. "When we first met, I thought you were just another arrogant CEO, used to getting what you want, used to people catering to your whims. But there's more to you than that. There's more to you, too. The brilliant consultant with the impressive portfolio is also the woman who stays late at the office working on pro bono projects for nonprofits, who sends money home to her family every month even though it means living in a smaller apartment than you could afford, who learned basic Korean in 6 months through pure determination because you refused to be the foreigner who expected everyone to accommodate her. You really do pay attention. To you, always. He pulled her closer, his arms wrapping around her waist as they stood on the terrace overlooking the glittering city. So what do we do now? Go back into that ballroom and face the gossip. Make this official. Before Juliet could answer, the terrace doors burst open. A woman stood silhouetted in the doorway, backlit by the ballroom's golden glow. She was stunning, elegant in a way that spoke of old money and careful breeding, her white gown flowing around her like she'd stepped out of a fashion editorial. Her face was a perfect mask of composure, but her eyes blazed with something dangerous as they locked on Min-ho. So it's true, she said, her English flawless and cold. I heard the whispers, but I didn't want to believe it. Min-ho with his foreign consultant, how predictably disappointing. Min-ho's body went rigid against Juliet's, his hands tightening protectively on her waist. Soo-jin, what are you doing here? What am I doing here? Soo-jin's laugh was brittle, sharp as breaking glass. I'm attending a charity gala. The real question is what you're doing here, wrapped around a woman who isn't your fiancé. The word hit Juliet like a physical blow. Fiancé. Min-ho had a fiancé. She tried to step away from him, but his grip on her waist tightened, holding her in place. Ex-fiancé, he said, his voice hard. We ended things 3 months ago, Soo-jin, you know that. Did we? Because I don't recall agreeing to break our engagement. I recall you having a tantrum about wanting freedom, about not being ready for marriage. I assumed you'd come to your senses eventually. Soo-jin's gaze raked over Juliet with undisguised contempt. I didn't realize you were just looking for something exotic to play with. Watch your mouth. Min-ho's voice dropped to something dangerous, something that made the air feel heavy with threat. Juliet is not. What? Not a distraction? Not a phase? Soo-jin stepped onto the terrace, her heels clicking against the stone. Please, Min-ho, I know you. You get bored easily. You chase what's forbidden, what's different, what gives you that thrill of conquest. But we both know how this ends. You'll tire of her, just like you've tired of everything else that wasn't handed to you on a silver platter. That's enough. Min-ho moved to step between them, but Juliet put a hand on his chest, stopping him. No, let her finish. Juliet's voice was steady even as her world tilted. Clearly, she has more to say. Soo-jin's smile was sharp, satisfied. Smart woman. You see, Min-ho and I have been together on and off for nearly 5 years. Our families have business connections going back decades. We were engaged 6 months ago, a beautiful ceremony planned, everyone expecting a wedding that would unite 2 of Seoul's most powerful families. She moved closer, her eyes never leaving Juliet's. And then he decided he needed space, needed to find himself. Needed to sow some wild oats before settling into marriage and responsibility. Soo-jin, that's not. Isn't it? Soo-jin turned to him. Tell me, did you mention to your consultant that our families still expect us to marry? That your mother calls me weekly to discuss wedding plans, certain that you'll come around? That everyone in that ballroom assumes we're still engaged because you haven't had the courage to officially call it off? Juliet felt like she was watching the scene from outside her body. Min-ho's face had gone pale, his jaw clenched so tight she could see the muscle jumping. He wasn't denying it, wasn't contradicting anything Soo-jin said. Juliet, he started, but she cut him off. Is it true? Her voice sounded strange to her own ears, too calm, too distant. Are you still engaged to her? Technically, yes, but... Technically, she laughed, the sound hollow. That's a convenient word. It's complicated. Soo-jin and I, we were never. It wasn't a love match. It was business, family expectations, convenience. I ended it because I couldn't go through with marrying someone I didn't love. 3 months ago, Juliet said slowly, doing the math. You ended it 3 months ago. We started working together 6 months ago. Understanding dawned on Min-ho's face. It's not what you're thinking. Isn't it? You were engaged when we met, when you hired me, when you started all those late-night meetings, all those long looks, all that tension you've apparently been building for months." She finally managed to step back from him, his hands falling away from her waist. "I was the exotic distraction while you figured out whether you wanted to go through with your arranged marriage." "No, Juliet, no, that's not. Did you end things with her because of me?" The question came out sharper than she intended. Min-ho hesitated, just for a second, but it was enough. "Oh my God," Juliet felt sick. "I'm the reason you called off your engagement. I'm the reason your family is disappointed, why there are whispers in that ballroom, why." "You're the reason I realized I couldn't settle," Min-ho said fiercely. "You're the reason I understood that marrying for convenience, for family approval, for anything except real feeling, that would be a mistake. Yes, I broke things off with Soo-jin because of you, because working with you, being near you, watching you for 6 months made me realize what I was missing, what I'd never had." "How romantic," Soo-jin interjected. "He throws away years of planning, disappoints both our families, creates a scandal, all because his foreign consultant made him feel something new and exciting. Tell me, Ms. Juliet, how long do you think that excitement will last? How long before you're old news and he's back, apologizing, asking me to take him back like he always does?" "That's not going to happen," Min-ho said. "Isn't it? You have a pattern, darling. You chase, you conquer, you get bored. You've done it with business deals, with hobbies, with women. What makes her so different? What makes you think this time will be any different than all the others?" "Because Min-ho stopped, his eyes locked on Juliet's face. "Because I love her." The words fell into the space between them like stones into water, creating ripples that couldn't be taken back. Soo-jin's composure finally cracked, her face twisting with something ugly and hurt. "You love her. You've known her for 6 months and you love her. But 5 years with me, 5 years of building something together, of being there through everything, that meant nothing." "Soo-jin." "No, I don't want your pity or your explanations." She straightened, rebuilding her mask piece by piece. "But you should know, Min-ho, that your mother won't accept this. Your family won't accept this. You think breaking our engagement was a scandal. Wait until you try to build something real with a foreign consultant who has no connections, no family ties, no understanding of what being part of your world actually means." She turned to leave, then paused at the door. "And Ms. Juliet, when he gets tired of playing rebel, when the thrill of defying his family wears off, when you're left alone in a foreign country with a failed business and a broken heart, remember that I warned you. Remember that I told you exactly how this would end." The terrace door closed behind her, with a soft click that sounded like a gunshot in the silence. Juliet couldn't look at Min-ho, couldn't process what had just happened. Fiancé. Ex-fiancé, technically, but still. He'd been engaged, had been planning a wedding, had a woman, a family, an entire life mapped out when he'd hired Juliet's firm, when he'd started those long meetings, when he'd begun building whatever this was between them. "Juliet, please look at me." She forced herself to meet his eyes. They were desperate, pleading, more vulnerable than she'd ever seen them. "I should have told you," he said quietly. "About Soo-jin, about the engagement, about my family's expectations. I know that. But I was afraid that if you knew how complicated things were, you'd refuse to even try, that you'd decide I wasn't worth the trouble."